If I wanted the easiest way to move from the US to Europe in 2026, these are absolutely the 10 countries I would shortlist. And to be clear, we're talking about actual residency visas, not tourist stays or loopholes. I'm Kalie, and my husband Josh and I have been abroad since 2009 and twice moved from the US to Europe in that time frame.
Yeah, and in this video, you're gonna learn about the 10 easiest countries Americans can get a residency visa to live in Europe.
Easy to us is the variety of visas or broadness of visas, so it'll fit most people's situation and financial requirements. In this case, lower is better. Number 10 is Bulgaria. Bulgaria has the Type D visa for pensioners, so for this visa you have to provide at least the same as the monthly pension in Bulgaria, which they just moved to the euro, so we could see some fluctuation, but it's approximately 300 euros a month, and to qualify, the pension must come from outside of Bulgaria. Another option is the digital nomad or the remote work visa, where you have to earn income from outside of Bulgaria and show proof of income of at least $31,000 a year.
Okay, so Kalie's the one that's kind of this expert on these visas and the different options that you have. So she's gonna be the one giving you this information, and then we're gonna talk about some of the pros and cons of each place. So pros and cons of Bulgaria. So the first pro is the shift to the euro. I think that this is a big pro because it gives a little more predictability into what the currency could be, because the US dollar and the euro stay relatively stable, although we're not seeing that exactly right now.
Yeah, I think it's actually good to be working in euro. When you're talking about different currencies, it could be confusing. It could be maybe unstable, like you said. So the fact that they joined the Schengen and they have adopted the euro is a positive thing.
And it also helps when you're traveling from one country to another. So if you're living in Bulgaria, you don't have to worry about having your currency, your money in a different currency, and then going to somewhere else in Europe on vacation or whatever, and then having to do exchanges like that. So that's nice. The other thing that's a huge plus, which is why a lot of people have been looking at Bulgaria, is they do have a 10% flat tax.
Yeah, that's really nice. So you have an idea of what your taxes will actually be. You don't have to worry about a progressive scale, or am I going to be paying too much? 10% flat tax, you know what you're working with.
Yeah, so that predictability is great. And then the other thing that I wanted to highlight that has to do with money is the cost of living. Bulgaria has low cost of living. I mean, that can kind of be seen in the minimum wage.
Yes, of course. So when you know how much you actually have to prove to get one of these visas, you can see that because minimum wage is lower, then the overall cost of living is lower. But then what about natural beauty? Bulgaria has a lot of natural beauty, a lot of nice places that you could choose to live. A thing, though, that I think you need to consider is safety.
There's good safety in Bulgaria, so that's not a con. There's good personal safety there. But one of the cons would be there's poor infrastructure. Like there's things that are just old, dated, and that could be problematic.
Right, and maybe another con as well for safety in the same vein could be the possible corruption. It is one of the higher corrupt European countries, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see on this list, especially when we're talking about pros and cons between the different countries, is there's kind of going to be some groupings. There's going to be some patterns that we see, and it certainly exists with the corruption. There's several countries on this list that do have higher levels of corruption in the EU. Now, they're about average when it comes to global corruption or systemic corruption, but that is what it is. The other thing I wanted to point out, and maybe it's less of a problem for me, maybe more of a problem for you, is that the society in Bulgaria is male dominated.
Okay, so something to keep in mind if you're going as a single woman or even as a couple. Number 9 is Hungary. Hungary no longer has a retiree visa, but they do have a desirable golden visa. For this, you need to provide 250,000 euros in an approved real estate investment fund. They also have the white card, where you need to be making at least 3,000 net a month and have to have proof of this for at least 6 months before actually applying.
Okay, so the pros and cons. Coming from the United States to Hungary, you're going to find really good cost of living.
Another good thing about Hungary is if you don't want to actually have a car, they have really good public transportation.
One of the things that's going to be a theme to this list is pretty architecture. And as Americans, I mean, let's be honest, the older, the better when it comes to pretty architecture. Not necessarily infrastructure, but the architecture is phenomenal here.
That's a good point. You want to differentiate between infrastructure and architecture. And I think when we think of Europe, we romanticize about this architecture that's old world because we don't come from that. On this list, we will have a lot of those, but Hungary definitely ticks that box for that beautiful feel and that beautiful look.
Yeah, like the spas of Budapest as well. Interior design, ornate, cool. One of the problems that Hungary is currently experiencing is high inflation rates. So this isn't something that we could guess would be a long-term problem, but certainly for 2026, it could be problematic. So just budget accordingly.
Another con could be the language barrier. While they do speak English there, if you're trying to learn Hungarian or you're working with someone who only speaks Hungarian, that could be tricky because it is a tricky language.
Yeah, I was going to say it's one of the hardest. So the other thing, the other big con that we've got to point out is just like the country we talked about before, high corruption in EU. So by EU standards, it's pretty close to what Bulgaria is. So they're like neck and neck among some of the worst in the EU. Middle of the road, more or less, for the world. So just watch out for that.
Okay, real quick before we move on to the next country, some things to know about all of these countries is that some allow you to apply within the country, while others you have to do it before actually arriving to the country. All of them have some sort of minimum amount that you need to prove, and some want consistency on a monthly basis, others want cash in a bank account in their country, and some require both. All come with other requirements besides financial stability, but those will vary. Some want healthcare, most want criminal background checks, and all have applications and processing fees with varying processing times. And lastly, requirements change all the time, so things could change in the course of 2026.
All right, next country, number 8, Cyprus.
They have the category F, which is more for retirees. You need to provide a secure annual income of 9,600 euros for one, and then you have to add on more if there are dependents. This gives you permanent residency, and your card is good for 10 years and can be renewed. There's also the pink slip, which requires income from abroad and needs to be deposited into a Cyprus bank account. You need to deposit at least 24,000 euros for this 1-year permit.
One of the biggest cons I can think of in Cyprus is the high quality of life with 300 plus sunny days a year.
It sounds awful, doesn't it?
So I absolutely loved our travels to Cyprus. That's a place that we're looking to go and visit again this year. We just had some friends of ours move there. They're loving it. When they first made their visit there, they were like, okay, we need to make the switch and move over to Cyprus. So why? What are some of the things that is to love about Cyprus?
Of course, we talked about the weather. So if you like the sun, but it's not too hot, then this would be a good place for you. Another thing is I think the people are quite welcoming, and so it gives a safe environment as well.
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is a growing kind of expat community, and locals are very welcome to expats. They're embracing them, I think, faster than in other parts of the world. There's also high levels of English fluency in Cyprus compared to other countries in the region, for sure. You know, one of the funny things we experienced is some of the younger people that we met whenever we visited, they were very willing to just try to speak in English. And even though it might have been a bit broken, like, that's fine because I don't speak Greek or, so it was cool.
Yeah, that's definitely helpful when you move to a new place. The language, you don't want it to be a barrier. A con, though, I would say, is a bit of the infrastructure. I mean, it is an island, so keeping that in mind. And then, of course, transportation on the island and then getting off and on the island.
Yeah. So when we're talking about infrastructure, we're more kind of honing in on infrastructure when it comes to transportation. So public transportation is not great. Really, I think this is a place that you would need a car.
Yeah, they have a bus system, but it doesn't run as frequently as a lot of other places. So a car would definitely be better here.
But the good thing about having a car is I found when we were there, the landscape to be super diverse. Like in the same day, we started out at the beach. We ended up in the mountains, snow-capped, had a little snowball fight at lunchtime. And then we ended up in what is a city of Nicosia, the capital, which was really cool. I mean, it felt like I don't want to say a big city, but it felt like a big city.
Feels like a city.
It felt like a proper city.
So for it being an island and a smaller island, it is quite diverse.
Okay, here's something that's going to be a theme in a lot of these countries is slow bureaucracy. So that's something that you might have to deal with in Cyprus. Well, you will have to deal with in Cyprus if you choose to live there.
And that goes for just applying for your visa, but then anything on a day-to-day basis that could be bureaucratic, you might get held up.
It's more of that right there.
Number 7 is Latvia. Latvia does have a retiree visa, but you have to be over the age of 65 and prove you make at least 1,101 euros a month from a pension. Alternatively, there is the Type D long stay visa. This visa doesn't have the age or pension requirements, but you need to make at least 4,213 euros a month.
That's a lot.
Yeah, a lot more than the pensioner one for sure.
It does have a strong cost of living, which leads to a higher quality of life.
So is that a pro or a con?
Well, I mean, I think it's a pro in that things aren't super expensive there, except maybe Riga, not maybe, but Riga is getting more expensive for sure. Like housing prices have risen there. But yeah, you do have a very good quality of life meeting those minimum thresholds.
Okay, so as long as you're willing to pay for it, you do have a high quality of life, which I think is definitely worth it in a place like Riga or maybe some other parts of Latvia.
One thing that is amazing is for nature lovers, there is a ton of nature, if you will. Half of the country is covered by forest, so that's phenomenal. We've actually only spent time in Riga itself, and Riga did feel very green. You've got a beautiful river there, so it does feel like kind of the outdoors is integrated within everyday life, which is very cool. It's something that we enjoy.
Just keep in mind that it can get cold because of its location as well, though.
Yeah, but it does have 4 distinct seasons. So we know that not everyone watching these videos is interested in like just a beach destination or just a mountain destination or a place that's always rainy or whatever. Although I don't know why
Who wants a place that's always
some
rainy?
people do that. Some people throw that out there. But it does have 4 distinct seasons. So that's cool.
Okay, something else that's really good is it's quite safe. It's known to be very safe, and overall the country is peaceful.
Yeah, exactly. Now, one of the problems with the 4 distinct seasons is that when you get to the winter time and kind of on the shoulders, there's a lack of sunlight. You're further north, so you've got less of a time period where the sun's actually out.
Yeah, so maybe if you get seasonal depression or you have issues with that, then you want to be thinking if you're going to move there, how you can make sure that it doesn't affect you.
And then another con really is that culturally the people are quite reserved. So if you're looking to try to make friends quickly or you like more sociable kind of experiences, that could be more difficult, at least with the local people. Now, obviously, if you get yourself within an expat community of people that share your culture, that'll be easier. But in terms of like integrating with the locals, it is more challenging.
Yeah, so maybe give it a little bit of time. Number 6 is Albania. For Albania, you have the Type D, which is good for retirees. You need to prove a consistent annual pension income of approximately 12,500 a year. Now, they don't use the euro, they use the Albanian lek. So this amount has an approximation because it's converted. Another option is the unique permit for remote work. For this one, there's actually not an official minimum, but the common amount quoted is a little under 10,000 a year.
Okay, the good thing about here is the cost of living if your income is from outside of the country.
I think that's a massive perk, a massive draw for a lot of people is the overall cost of living, especially like you said, if you're making an income from outside.
Yeah, if you're on the local economy, it's going to be a struggle. I mean, you can kind of go out and read any sort of blog talking about what the wages are and everything, like what the compensation is. It's something that has led to a brain drain. But if you're making money from outside, it's, I mean, I think that they're trying to make it like a new Dubai.
Okay.
You know, so it's going to be for the like the wealthier people. And the other great thing about Albania is the hospitality culture. They do have an awesome hospitality culture. We have some friends that really enjoy visiting there and have always felt super welcome.
Location-wise, I think it's also really nice because it does have a Mediterranean climate. So weather-wise, I think that it's a nice pro.
Yeah. But one of the downsides, one of the cons would be the pollution. So there's been a lot of construction and development happening, especially in the major cities, especially in Tirana. And that sounds like Tirana, how people say Toronto. But the pollution has gotten bad. It is easily one of the biggest cons for people that are living there. Watch out for that if you're sensitive in terms of air quality.
Breathing, asthma, or something like that, it could be tough.
Exactly.
Another big con as well is corruption.
Yeah, I think this one is actually the worst in Europe in terms of how it's rated. So we talked about 2 others that were on the low end of Europe, but I think that this is the worst. And it puts it like about average or a little below average for the world in terms of corruption.
Yeah, so there's corruption, and also keeping in mind it's not part of the Schengen either. So you don't have the perks of, okay, the euro isn't as big of a deal with the conversion, but you don't have the perks of just being able to be part of the Schengen and what that brings.
But travel-wise, not so bad because you will have on an American passport 90 days to go into Europe. and, have like an extended holiday, if you will, and then, return back to Albania. All right, let's move to our top 5.
Number 5 is France. France has a long stay visa, which works for either passive or active income. This visa is only good for 1 year, but it can be renewed. You do need to have proof of at least France's minimum wage, but actually a little more is advised. This would mean having just under 22,000 euros annually.
Do you think that that's enough?
To live there, I don't know if you'd actually want to live on that amount.
One of the great things about France is its high quality of life. I mean, it does come at a cost, right? It's not a huge cost, especially for Americans. You're moving with the expense of what it's like being in the US and those prices. So it should be about the same or less, depending on obviously where you move, what city you go to. But the quality of life is high.
That's the big thing, I think. If you're going to hit one of the bigger cities, then you're going to pay for it for sure. And like the visa, like we were saying, 22,000 is the minimum, but not really what you want to live on, especially in one of the bigger cities. However, you can find a lot more opportunities in some of these smaller cities. And I think that's where you have a high quality of life if you want a slower pace of life, but then also more bang for your buck, I think.
Yeah, and more recently, over the past couple of years since we moved to Portugal, we've been visiting France, and we've been going to these secondary and tertiary cities and finding them really great.
Yeah, I mean, the food is so good. That's one thing that I think is really nice is the food. But then you also have the history and the culture. And again, I was talking about romanticizing earlier about Europe. I mean, France is definitely one of those places where you're going to love all of that.
Yeah. Now, a con is they invented the word bureaucracy, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think that they perfected it in terms of like turning it into a negative word. There are bureaucratic problems that you'll have. The other thing that always pops up, and it's not everywhere in France, but there is this like perceived rudeness. I think it's just a different form of communication that French and certainly Americans have. So there's like a rudeness that people will claim about the French. So that could be a con.
Yeah, and I think actually you get a lot more of that mainly in Paris. You get this snootiness that I think happens. But that is a lot more in Paris. If you go to the southern part of France or other smaller places, you don't really get that feel as much. So it's kind of comes from Paris, I would say. And even we know French people who say the same thing.
Yeah, that's true. The other thing that I want to touch on when it comes to the cities, especially like Paris, but there are a few others, that the cities can feel maybe a little crowded or overcrowded. And that's not just with tourists, but that's with, there's just too many people living on top of each other. And then also it can feel dirty. Like some of the cities can feel dirty, the bigger ones anyways.
Right. They have been known to have trash issues, rat issues, so some of that dirtiness definitely comes out. Number 4 is Italy. Italy has the elective residence visa. For this, you need to show passive income of 31,000 annually for the main applicant, but then you'll need more if you're going to add applicants on top of that. They also have the digital nomad visa, and to obtain this, you'll need at least an annual income of 28,000 euros.
I know what you're going to say about your love for Italy, and it's the coffee culture.
I always going to go with the food. It could be the wine as well.
Kalie always bangs on about coffee culture, and honestly, Italy doesn't disappoint. Now, there are some quirks about like when to order what kind of coffee, because it's usually like before noon, you can have coffee with milk in it. Then afternoon, it's espressos. But being able to just hang out at cafes the way you do there and just have a coffee and watch the world go by. I mean, obviously, you could do that in some of these other European countries as well. That's pretty normal. But it does have like that culture, that vibe to it.
And it doesn't even have to be a coffee culture. It could be a gelato culture or, like I said, a wine culture. So just sitting at a cafe, enjoying time with friends, family, and just watching things go on is really nice about Italy.
Yeah, another thing that's great, and this might be a little dependent on where you live, but overall the country has really good climate in terms of being like fairly mild, having it all. You don't have like huge swings in temperature and like snow and that type of thing. So that's great. Obviously, you can find areas that do have snow because they're skiing. But summers get hot, but it's like if it's hot in Italy, it's usually hot everywhere else in Europe. So again,
that depends on where you're located as well in the country. So you could choose that with what fits what you're looking for. But then cost of living generally is really good as well.
When we're saying cost of living is good, we're talking about it from an American perspective and coming over with your U.S. pension, for example, or coming over with a remote job from the U.S. So cost of living will be better generally in Italy than it will be the U.S.
All right, a big con we have to get to.
It's the theme.
Bureaucracy.
Yeah,
oh, there's Italians.
Sure. For sure.
So watch out for that.
I mean, it's funny. It's like there's this like bureaucracy complaint Olympics that a lot of the Southern European countries talk about.
Yeah.
Italy will complain, Portugal, Spain, and then France. Like the people just complain about the bureaucracy.
Yeah.
It's not just the foreigners complaining about the bureaucracy, although that happens too, like in the Facebook groups and the chat forums.
Yeah.
But that exists. And then you mentioned earlier about infrastructure. And this is one that we need to kind of clearly state what we're talking about here. The poor infrastructure of housing for the older buildings could be problematic.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a lot of these older buildings being unrenovated, and you're going to have issues with climate control inside. Sometimes it's going to be like mild outside, but feel very cold inside. They'll have moisture issues with dampness. So that could cause molds. And then you have breathing issue, respiratory issues. So there's that problem. The lack of housing stock when it comes to like updated modern housing is a bit problematic in Italy.
Where you want to live. And they try to get
charming looking
Yeah,
places,
of course, charming. They try to get you with those €1 properties as well. But those,
you gotta renovate.
Yeah, you have to renovate because those are like what you're talking about with the infrastructure.
Yeah.
And maybe they're in locations that aren't as nice either, just because they're more remote and like everywhere, the whole village has to be renovated. So if you get a big group of friends, it might work. But if you're just doing it on your own, that might not be the best idea.
And if you do that, give us a call.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one.
Number 3 is Greece. Greece has a visa called the Financially Independent Person Visa. You have to prove passive income for this visa and be making $3,500 a month. If you don't have passive income, no worries though, they do have a digital nomad visa. For this visa, you have to have work contracts from outside of Greece, and it's also $3,500 a month for a single.
All right, so this is a theme that also pops up, and that is 300 plus days of sunshine a year in Greece. And I mean,
That's not bad. Yeah, who doesn't want the sunshine?
We're in rainy days right now, and boy, I could take with a dose of vitamin D sunshine.
Yes.
So that's great, but also the Mediterranean diet. If you're into the Mediterranean diet, I mean, it's practically born there. The food's great. It's one of the highest rated culinary foods in the world. I love it.
It's very good.
Love Greek food.
Yes, Greek food is very good. Also, actually where it's located, Greece, geographically, I think it's diverse and it can get you to a lot of different places. I like the location as far as where it is in Europe and the world.
Yeah, you've got beaches, mountains, islands.
You're around very cool countries as well. Some part of the EU, some not, easy to pop in and out of by flight.
Yeah. Has a rich culture. I mean, I don't think that we have to bang on about Greek culture and Greek's influence on the world. But if you're into that sort of thing, then Greece is going to be full of it, and that's going to be great. A con.
What we got?
Bureaucracy. Slow bureaucracy. Yeah, slow bureaucracy. And then the other thing is that there has been a rise in the cost of living, which has certainly kind of dampened the spirits of people, and it's obviously made it more challenging for people to live.
Yeah, I think as the Greek government incentivizes people to move there, we are seeing that cost of living go up.
And it was actually happening even before then. So
yeah,
they've been struggling with a cost of living for quite some time.
Number 2 is Spain. A desirable visa for those with passive income for Spain is the non-lucrative visa. Again, this has to be proven with passive income, and it needs to be around 30,000 euros a year, plus more if you're going to add dependents. There's also the digital nomad visa, which is based on Spain's minimum salary. Right now, that's around 2,400 euros a month for this visa, and it's actually better to apply in Spain.
And what's great about Spain? 300 plus days of sunshine a year.
Yeah, can you believe it? Again. But I will say, it does rain and even snow in parts of Spain too, though.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you're talking about northern Spain, yes, the rainfall's higher and yeah, you have less sunny days. But it's a place that we know quite well. We used to live there. We've actually visited every single autonomous region there. So no surprise maybe that it's second on this list. And it's easy for us to talk about. The cost of living when we were there was really solid, especially again coming from U.S. U.S. incomes over to Spain. Awesome.
Overall, the healthcare is really good. Safety is good as well. I mean, it depends on where you are in the city, and of course, you want to be aware of pickpocketing and some of those types of things. But safety is really high.
And then there's the food and beverage culture. So you've got that, the tapas culture.
It's nice.
You can also just grab a glass of wine and just chill out somewhere. They have some nice like domestic beers if you're into beers. They do drink it differently, I would say. Like it's more typical to order a small beer versus getting a pint. So that's something that you can get tucked into when it comes to the culture. Spanish are very proud of their food.
They should be, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the food culture, it's different than a few of these other European countries we've talked about, but it's really, really good. So the food is good. The culture is good for food and drink.
Yeah. Another great thing that I really appreciate about Spain, especially the longer I live on the Iberian Peninsula, and I get to compare between Portugal and Spain, is Spanish infrastructure. Like they just have better built cities.
Yeah.
The internal infrastructure and all just seems to be good.
Yeah.
Solid. Yeah.
Con. Bureaucracy.
Yeah, so bureaucracy is a huge con. And then there's also this like mañana culture where it's like, we'll just get it done tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, like some people might say it's the siesta culture as well, where, you know, services can shut down during the middle of the day.
Yeah, and that still happens.
Yeah, I mean,
2026,
when we lived there, we really struggled with it. But yeah, I mean, this kind of like slower pace of life, it does permeate to like almost every point of life. So that's challenging. Now, I did say that the infrastructure is good, but one thing you have to watch out for, and this is a con, is that older housing, especially in the cities, and even to some extent outside of the cities and the villages, it can be poor. Like it can be those problems like Italy where you've got the dampness and, you know, a lot of stuff was built to control climate during the summer when it's hot so that the inside stays cool. But if it's cool outside, then it's cold inside. Yeah. That's the problem. So the winters can be a bit challenging.
Another big con for Spain are the different service disruptions. Like they like to strike.
Yes.
That is a thing. So watch out for that because that can really mess things up if you're going to travel by train or if you need to go to a government building or you name it. They are striking.
Yeah, and we honestly probably could have brought this up as well in both Italy and France, but like it scarred us while we lived in Spain. Like it's
hard to get stuff done.
It would really mess up plans.
Yeah.
So that's another con. Let's move on to number one.
Number one is Portugal. Portugal has the D7 visa. You must use passive income to apply for this, and it's always pegged to the country's minimum wage, which is currently 920 euros a month. For those of you with active income, so remote workers, digital nomads, freelancers, and so on, you have the D8 visa. You use active income to apply for this, and the minimum required amount is to be making, on average, 4 times the amount of minimum wage. So that's 920 times 4, which equals 3,680 euros.
All right, so for those of you that know the channel, one, you know that we live in Portugal, and two, you know that we do make a lot of content about Portugal. And I don't want to say that that's the reason that we put Portugal as number one on the list. We really tried to look at this, and we did look at this very objectively. What's the range of visa offerings? Like how many people could actually qualify for this visa, and what are the costs? And when we look at that, it just seems like Portugal is legitimately the number one on the list. It doesn't mean that it's going to be the number one for you because maybe the tax situation here doesn't work as well as like, let's say France, where you'll be taxed less in France, if that's what you're optimizing for. So we just try to build this criteria out based on what's the broadness of visa offerings, like how many people would fit, and then how much does it cost. So what are the pros about Portugal?
Sunny days.
Yeah, another place that's billed is 300 plus, or maybe it's like 330 sunny days a year. In the north, no.
It rains more in the north, but you know, that's kind of how it is.
Yeah.
Another big draw to Portugal is the overall cost of living being very, very affordable.
It is. And again, it's compared back to the US. Food and beverage here, great. It's one of the top ranked cuisines in the world. It's probably one of the ones that the average person has never experienced.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are shocked when they hear how highly Portuguese food ranks, but it is great.
It's really high, and I think one thing that people really always look at is Spanish food, Italian food, Greek food.
Exactly.
And of course,
French.
Those are top of the list, but Portuguese is as well. So if you've never actually had Portuguese, you should try it.
Yeah, for sure. English fluency is also another thing. So if you find it difficult to learn another language and adapt to another language, some of the countries on our list are certainly much harder than others. But in Portugal, the English fluency of Portuguese is really high.
There's also quite a diverse landscape for being such a small country.
Yeah, absolutely. There's mountains, there's plenty of beach, and I think that that's awesome. That's such a benefit of the place. The negative, bureaucracy. So,
Can't get away from it.
yeah, I mean, Portugal has really struggled in specific bureaucratic areas over the past 5 to 10 years. It's picking up in some ways, and it's still dropping the ball in other ways.
Yeah, I think it's still kind of antiquated. I think that they need to digitalize a bit more, making things a little easier instead of having a lot of paper, because then it just slows things down. So I think that they've made strides, but they still have a long way to go.
Yeah. And then infrastructure. Again, Spain's infrastructure we find much stronger than Portugal's infrastructure overall. Like the way cities are built and laid out, it's better. And then a big con that we've noticed since living here is driving habits. Many of our Portuguese friends will comment on this as well. Like Portuguese drivers are crazy.
Yeah, yeah, they're
They're
crazy.
like really nice outside of the car.
Yeah.
Happens you get them behind the wheel and they're a different person.
Yeah, it's not so bad when you're on the highways, which has a little more space and you can kind of just go the pace that you want. Maybe they drive fast past you. But when you get into smaller areas like cities or one-way streets and everything, and you're in and out. So yeah, it can be pretty crazy.
If you want to explore more on specific countries that we've listed here, there's a playlist and we're building out country guides right here. So you can click on that and find the one that you like. It's on Expats Everywhere Explorers. Now, let's get moving.
Bye.
Bye.